Inside an automotive shop, a worker was walking through the work area while looking down at his phone. Distracted and not watching where he was going, he walked directly into a raised vehicle lift arm, striking his head on the metal riser. This incident clearly demonstrates the dangers of distraction in active work environments. Automotive shops contain low-clearance hazards, protruding equipment, and elevated vehicles that require constant situational awareness. Workers must avoid mobile phone use while walking in operational areas, and raised lift components should be clearly marked or barricaded. Maintaining focus and keeping eyes forward are critical to preventing simple but painful workplace injuries. Inside a woodworking workshop, a worker powered on a newly installed lathe to test it. He had forgotten that a metal disc was still attached to the rotating assembly. After only a few seconds of high-speed spinning, the disc detached due to centrifugal force and was launched forward, striking the worker in the chest. This incident clearly demonstrates the extreme dangers of unsecured attachments and failing to perform pre-operation checks on rotating machinery. All components must be properly mounted and verified before startup, and test runs should be performed from a safe distance using guards or shields. Inside a metal works facility, a worker was walking past a large CNC lathe while it was spinning a metal sheet at high speed. Without warning, the sheet catastrophically failed and exploded apart, launching heavy metal strip debris throughout the area. The worker narrowly avoided being struck as fragments flew across the shop floor. This incident clearly demonstrates the extreme hazards of high-speed rotating materials and inadequate guarding around CNC equipment. Metal sheets can rupture violently if improperly mounted, unbalanced, or oversped. CNC lathes must be fully enclosed with protective barriers, and operators and bystanders must remain outside designated danger zones during operation. On an oil rig, 3 workers were configuring drilling equipment and aligning pipes during setup. While adjustments were underway, one worker accidentally activated a high-pressure line. With torque already trapped in the pipe, even a small lift by the driller released the stored energy. The pipe connectors instantly swung with extreme force, striking the workers and throwing their bodies away from the work area. This incident clearly demonstrates the deadly dangers of trapped pressure and stored rotational energy during pipe handling operations. High-pressure systems must be fully isolated and verified depressurized before alignment begins. Workers must stay clear of the line of fire, and all torque must be relieved prior to lifting. Inside a board manufacturing facility, a worker climbed on top of a large press machine to troubleshoot an issue. While standing above the equipment, he reached his hand into an opening in the machine. The moving mechanism suddenly grabbed his hand, nearly pulling him into the press. He managed to yank himself free, but his hands were severely injured. This incident clearly demonstrates the extreme dangers of bypassing lockout procedures and reaching into active machinery. Press equipment contains powerful moving components that can draw in body parts within seconds. Machines must be fully shut down, locked out, and verified de-energized before any maintenance or adjustments are performed. Inside a warehouse, a worker had his foot caught beneath a loaded pallet while a forklift continued pushing the pallet toward him. Trapped in place, the worker struggled to free himself as the weight pressed forward. In a desperate attempt to escape, he tried lifting the heavy pallet with his back to release his foot, narrowly avoiding further injury. This incident clearly demonstrates the serious risks of workers standing in active forklift travel paths and attempting manual recovery under load. Forklift operators must maintain clear visibility and stop immediately if resistance is felt. Workers should never place themselves in front of moving pallets, and pallets should only be positioned with equipment, not human force. At a road renovation project, an excavator was clearing soil when it accidentally struck an underground water pipe. The damaged line immediately released high-pressure water, blasting across the work area and knocking into nearby workers. Several workers were injured as the uncontrolled spray flooded the site. This incident clearly demonstrates the serious hazards of excavating without verified utility locations and the dangers of pressurized underground services. All buried utilities must be identified and marked before digging begins, and operators should use spotters and reduce digging speeds in known service areas. Emergency shutoff procedures must be established in advance, and workers should maintain safe distances from excavation zones where hidden pipes or cables may be present. In the parking lot of a warehouse, a forklift operator was practicing placing a heavy metal panel onto a raised platform using a crane-style attachment mounted to the forks. As the panel was lifted forward, its weight shifted beyond the forklift's stability point. The sudden change in center of gravity caused the entire forklift to pitch forward, overturning onto the platform. This incident clearly demonstrates the catastrophic risks of exceeding forklift load limits and lifting loads outside the rated load center, especially when using extended attachments. Forklift operators must account for attachment derating, load distance, and platform height before lifting. Inside a publishing facility, 2 workers were preparing to move a thick raw book using an overhead crane. Before the load had been properly secured or guided, the crane began moving unexpectedly. Both workers grabbed onto the suspended material in an attempt to stop it from traveling. As the heavy load swung, it struck one worker's legs, causing injury. This incident clearly demonstrates the dangers of uncontrolled crane movement and workers attempting to manually restrain suspended loads. Workers should never hold or block moving loads by hand, and crane controls must be coordinated with clear communication between operators and ground personnel. Inside a fabric factory, a heavy roll of fabric suddenly fell and struck a worker, knocking him down in pain. As a co-worker rushed over, he slipped on an additional roll. That roll then tipped and fell onto the injured worker as well, compounding the incident. This incident clearly demonstrates the serious hazards of improperly stored cylindrical materials in cluttered walkways. Fabric rolls can easily roll or tip when not chocked or secured, creating chain reaction accidents. All rolls must be stored in racks or restrained to prevent movement, and floors must be kept clear to allow safe access during emergencies. Inside a junk shop, a worker was standing nearby while a bundled set of metal pins hung and swung freely. He remained in the area, casually observing operations, not recognizing the increasing motion of the suspended metal. As the swinging grew stronger, the worker turned away, and the moving pins suddenly struck the back of his head. This incident clearly demonstrates the dangers of standing within the swing radius of suspended materials and failing to recognize line-of-fire hazards. Suspended metal can build momentum quickly and strike without warning. Workers must stay clear of hanging loads, and swing zones should be clearly marked and enforced. At a pipe renovation project, 2 workers were inside a trench. One worker was cutting a small opening into a pipe, while the other held the cable line steady. Without warning, the pipe ruptured under high pressure, causing a massive explosion of water that flooded the entire area and struck both workers. This incident clearly demonstrates the extreme hazards of working with pressurized pipelines without proper isolation. High-pressure water can escape violently from even small openings, creating an immediate risk of injury or drowning. Pipes must be fully depressurized and secured before any cutting or modifications, and workers should maintain safe distances and use protective barriers when working in trenches.